Great.
Thank you so much, honorable members. Thank you. Honorable members, it's just been brought to my attention that Premier is also in the house. Welcome once again, Premier. You have recuperated, and we can just thank the Almighty that you are with us today and ready to take on the task ahead. So welcome back once again. Members, we will now ask the Secretary to read the first order of the day. Secretary.
Speak. Chief Whip, I think there's another motion, Chief Whip.
Sorry, Deputy Chief Whip, I only received two. Perhaps there was a mistake. I only know of the two. Chief Whip?
Chief Whip, Filtane motion.
There is another item that comes at the end of the day when there will be a period for all political parties, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip. Are you referring to that one?
No, I'm all right, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Can we now call on the Secretary to read the first?
Honorable Speaker, we still have member statements also, if I'm not mistaken.
No, my understanding that there was not going to be any member statements, Honorable. That was the briefing that I got after the multi-party whoopee. That's just the briefing that I received. Can I just be clarified by the Chief Whip?
Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Greetings once more. The resolution we have, Honorable Speakers, the multi-party, is that there will be there won't be any other order except the only order of the day. But member statements, as we see it, as well as motions, we have no resolution to say they won't form part of the sitting. I wish to bring that to your attention. We thought we will have member statements and motions, except that there won't be any other order except the one and only for the day. Thank you.
Okay, thank my apologies, Chief Whip. Was brought to my understanding that explicitly that will not be done as per the agreement. Can I then just have an indication of those members that have got member statements to make? I see Honorable Fishlani's hand is up. Honorable Fishlani.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I am sorry for any confusion made. I just want to make a statement on the continued fight against COVID-19. As the world continues the fight against coronavirus, sadly, the numbers in South Africa are now on a steady rise. As of today, the 26th November 2020, it has been reported by the National Department of Health that infection rate for the Eastern Cape province is a total number of 121,329 cases with deaths sitting at 4,475, with total recoveries at 116, and the active cases as 9,738. It is a cause of concern that the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro has the most cluster outbreaks and concentrated COVID-19 cases, and close to 50% of the cases reported nationally coming from the Eastern Cape on a daily basis. We wish a speedy recovery to everyone who has tested positive for the COVID-19. We continue to urge every citizen to wear their masks in public spaces, make sure their nose and mouths are covered, to practice social distancing, sanitize and wash their hands in every opportunity they get. As the African National Congress, Honorable Speaker, would also like to extend a word of gratitude to all the frontline workers who work tirelessly with utmost dedication. May they continue with the good fight. We call upon the legislature to join the nation on 5 days of mourning from the 25 November to 29th November 2020, particularly for the victims of COVID-19 and gender-based violence and femicide, as we have alluded to in your opening, Honorable Speaker. We also call upon for this institution and provincial government departments to ensure that national flag is flown at half-mast throughout the province from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We also call upon all people of this province to join by wearing a black armband or a ribbon or any other sign that signifies an act of mourning in order to demonstrate our solemn respect for those who have passed away due to COVID-19 and gender-based violence and femicide. We encourage this institution and department to set up memorial corners, wear flowers, lit candles, and any kind that can form a memorial that will be.
Elfie Slani, is there another hand? I see Honorable Van Boegenrode's hand is up.
A1. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Honorable Van Boegenrode, I lost you. You wanted to draw my attention to?
Rule 135.
Can you read it to me, Honorable? I don't have my rule book with me, unfortunately.
Speaker, it says that a member that
you have just gone.
Connectivity is a bit bad. Sorry.
Yes, because you keep on cutting Van Boegenrode. Please do so. But I will also ask the officials just to look up. My apology. That's the thing if you're working from home. Now I have to run downstairs to go get the rule book. My apologies for that. I see there was another hand up. Who was the other hand? Can the officials just, I know there were 3 hands. There was a hand before Honorable Van Boegenrode. If not, is there no one else for member statements? Then can I give over to the Premier just to respond? Or if there's, if the Premier assigns to any of the members of the Executive Committee. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, I'm battling myself from where I am. I've been trying to connect and get a sense on what the member was saying. Can you hear me, Honorable Speaker?
Yes, Premier, Honorable Premier, I can hear you. It's a pity perhaps if the MEC of Health is in the house to assist you. The member was basically making statements around COVID-19, the incidences, as well as the second wave that have basically hit the Eastern Cape.
Well, through you, Honorable Speaker, if I may just briefly reflect on that. Indeed, we are witnessing this resurgence or the second wave. Signs that are really hitting our shores as a province, particularly around the areas of Nelson Mandela and Sarabatman. But of course, there is an indication that that is also encroaching your Buffalo City, Amatole, as well as Christiani. So it's a worrying trend, which shows that it might go to a fully blown a second wave. We are putting all measures in place to really contain the spread. All our teams, the MEC is not in the house for sure because she is hosting ministers, Minister of Health and Minister Cocter down in Port Elizabeth, interacting with stakeholders, try to deal with the problem at hand. We hope that we'll be able to prevail as we did in the first experience of COVID-19. It looks to be deadly this time around. People are dying, it's a fact. But there are also a lot of distortions in the public. The issues of beds that are said to be, or hospital to be overcrowded. We still have more beds in our hospitals. We still have a field hospital in Port Elizabeth that can accommodate up to 1.5. But it was still at about 300 bed occupancy. there's been an issue of processing the patients, really making. We have worked out that, and we've attended to it, so that patients who go to hospital having been declared positive, they must simply go to bed so that they can be attended to. Those who need oxygen, be given an oxygen or ventilators. So we are attending to that. We've got a plan in place. We've developed that. So we are implementing that plan. We are mobilizing the community who are on the street. More than 10 buses or mobile testing station are on the ground. We're also using the rapid tests. It is actually effective, Honorable Speaker, I must say. I also did it myself as part of the experiment to retest when I was checking how far I've gone on my isolation, and I've tested negative. So it is working, of course. So we're using that in Nelson Mandela to ensure that we test as many people as possible. And so far, people are responding very well. But the challenge is social behavior, how our people behave. The liquor remains a risk factor. So we wanted to mobilize the business community, people to understand, also to enforce regulations, to be strict on numbers. Funerals remains those super spreaders that we have, the social gatherings. So the plea we can make into this House, Honorable Speaker, is that all of us in our constituencies, let's go out in full force, make sure that we continue with awareness campaign, we continue encouraging our people to stick to the health protocols. That will help us and get our people inside their houses so that they don't move. We know that the transmission of this virus is more effective when people are loitering. But when people are at home, this virus cannot be transmitted from one person to another. So we are working on that. We do have a plan in place with support from national. We can see already that turnaround. We hope that we will be able to deal with that and contain it before it gets beyond our control.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Noting that there were no other members, I'm not quite sure, but perhaps Honourable Van Boegenrode will afterwards explain why he called on Rule 135(1)(a). The official sent me the script, but there were no other hands other than the two hands that I saw. If there were other members, there's still an opportunity. I'm not quite sure if that is the issue or was it the 3 minutes. But I don't see any other hands that is up, or there is nothing in my chat box for anybody else. If there is, then there's nothing in my chat box. So at this
Introduction of Provincial Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2020-2021.
Thank you. I will now call upon MEC for Finance, MEC Mvoko, to introduce the Provincial Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2020-2021. Over to you, MEC.
Thank you, honourable members of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature, mayors, traditional leaders, leaders of Chapter 9 institutions. Good afternoon, Molweni. Honourable Speaker, when I tabled the special budget adjustment speech here in July this year, our country was going through the worst period, one which required government to put relief measures to protect livelihoods. Today, I'm presenting the second adjustment budget speech at a time where government is consolidating measures to recover from the COVID-19 nightmare. This mini budget is crafted to respond to the socio-economic challenges of the day by reprioritizing resources to protect critical service delivery programs. We need to transit together from this moment of despondency to a moment of recovery. However, for us to achieve that, we need to be realistic with the current conditions that are facing our country in general and our province in particular. Honourable members, we're operating in an environment of economic devastation that requires us all to put our efforts towards rehabilitation of the economy. Everyone's focus must now be to support and align the economic reconstruction and recovery plan that has been laid to recovery and fiscal consolidation in line with Minister Tito Mbowene's medium-term budget policy statement in the country. There has been a sharp decline in economic growth. Key sectors of our economy are suffering. Unemployment numbers are growing. and we're experiencing government-wide budget cuts. These current weak economic conditions are not only a consequence of COVID-19 lockdown, but also emanate from our pre-existing structural challenges. For the year 2020, the provincial economy is expected to decline by negative 6% to 7%, with sectors such as travel and tourism, construction and tradable goods, especially those with extensive links to global supply chains, expected to be severely negatively impacted. Only the agricultural sector, which recorded growth of 6.21% in quarter 2 of 2020, is expected to be resilient. In terms of jobs, the provincial economy generated lower aggregate employment numbers owing to the number to the current COVID-19 pandemic, which has drastically limited the ability of people to search for work and companies to produce and employ more workers. Consequently, the unemployment rate in the province remains to be high at 45.8%, up from 36.9% in quarter 2 of 2020. We are, however, hopeful that through the presidential employment intervention of 1.2 billion and 205.1 million have been added to equitable share and conditional grant allocation of the province, respectively, will mitigate the rate of unemployment that is faced by our people. In the 2021 adjustment budget, the provincial equitable share has decreased to an adjusted budget of 69.1 billion rand from the main budget of 71.4 billion rand, due to a reduction of 2.4 billion against compensation of employees. Provincial Treasury grants have also decreased to an adjusted budget of 12 billion rand from main budget of 12.4 billion rand. The total provincial adjustment shows a reduction of 909.6 million rand, which decreases the provincial adjusted appropriation from 85.4 billion rand to 84 billion rand. It is worth noting, honorable members, that the province has lost the 2014 financial year and is expected to lose 29.7 billion rand over the 2021 MTF due to fiscal consolidation, cost of living adjustments, and data updates on the provincial equitable share. Despite all these shocks, the government has deployed a range of fiscal and monetary measures to avert the effects of the pandemic and limit economic damages, whilst also supporting economic recovery efforts. This is why it is important that we all consider objective conditions and real possibilities at hand as we move towards economic rehabilitation. Honorable Speaker, the Eastern Cape is earmarked to benefit immensely from the adopted 8 priority intervention, improve the economic trajectory of the Eastern Cape. That is why we have adopted a 5-point plan for economic recovery of the province, aligned to that of the country. The pillars of our 5-point plan are infrastructure development. We are placing infrastructure at the heart of economic recovery, strengthening provincial project packaging and implementation capacity. Industrialization and sector initiative, equitable and inclusive economy through SMEs, township economies, informal sector, and social economy. 4, digital transformation, to elevate the strategic role of broadband infrastructure, ensure skills, capacity, and access for connected and digitally included SMEs and entrepreneurs. And lastly, public finances, where we will mobilize public investment as a lever for growth. Significantly for the coming medium to long term, the government will be targeting the following: human settlement and agriculture and agro-processing. Our aim is to create jobs, unlock private investment, and initiatives when I present the main budget in March 2021. Our work around reindustrializing the province and growth is evident from the substantial investments that continue to be made by national, provincial, and local governments in developing our special economic zones, industrial parks, and tourism nodes. However, we also need to preserve what we have. Local businesses need to be protected to weather the current economic storm caused by the health pandemic. In this regard, the provincial government will upscale and assist in consolidating the rollout of business support packages for distressed businesses in the province. The assistance will target the full spectrum of business enterprises, ranging from supporting farmers, informal traders, SMEs, tourism operators to manufacturing. The aim is to protect existing product capacity and save jobs. Honorable Speaker, agriculture remains our hope in the fight against poverty, inequality, and unemployment, especially in a province like ours that boasts huge agricultural land. This potential, however, is being hindered by low levels of investment and limited integration between emerging farmers and mainstream commercial agriculture. The Provincial Agricultural Recovery Sectors, National Treasury, to stimulate our agricultural activities. This initiative is focusing on building data and monitoring, especially during this time of COVID-19 pandemic, where the country and the province is experiencing a fiscal cliff with a shrinking of revenue and equitable share. Honorable members, digital transformation is key to economic growth, and government must elevate the strategic role of broadband infrastructure to ensure skills, capacity, and access for connected and digitally included SMEs and entrepreneurs. In this regard, efforts are being made to introduce duplicate spending and leveraging volume buying and assisting in increased transition spend. E-procurement is both time-saving, efficient, and eliminates unnecessary. Speaker, ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has caused massive human suffering across the globe. It is likely to leave an indelible impact on small business. Despite all that, we continue to provide support to SMEs in line with our local economic development framework. The total procurement spend on goods and services for the province in Q2 of 2020 amounted to 1.9 billion rand and 1.1 billion rand, which constitute 58.6%, was spent on Eastern Cape-based suppliers and service providers. The Provincial Economy Recovery Plan will prioritize SME recovery to prevent job losses and promote inclusive growth. During the 2020 supplementary budget, Minister Tito Mboweni announced that provincial allocations would be made for the rollout of various presidential employment interventions to address unemployment, especially relating to the youth. In terms of the presidential employment stimulus, the National Treasury has provisionally allocated the following amounts for the province: an additional 1.2 billion rand equitable share allocation for purposes of employing 55,000 education assistants and to save school governing body posts at fee-paying schools and government-subsidized independent schools. An additional 34.3 million rand will be for the HIV, TB, malaria, and community outreach grant to appoint community health workers and outreach team leaders. An additional 24.7 million rand for the statutory human resources training and development grant to appoint enrolled nurses and estimates will be received, and some to be used to top up salaries in early childhood development facilities for additional duties of compliance support. The Provincial Road Maintenance Grant will receive an additional 86.1 million rand for jobs, for job creation through road maintenance projects. We believe that this intervention will bring the much needed relief, especially to the youth of the province. Amid COVID-19 challenges and moving with the times, the Eastern Cape government is determined to expand e-learning initiatives at our schools and increase the provision of skills programs. The initiatives will, however, not yield the expected results if we do not match them with the compatible infrastructure. In that regard, a budget facility for infrastructure worth 16 billion rand has been applied for to deal with the following: renovation of existing hotels and facilities, and lastly, construction of 5 new special schools. This work will go a long way in improving efficiencies at our schools and thereby contribute positively to our education outcomes. Honorable Speaker, we are in an unfamiliar terrain. The fiscal outlook is uncertain, given a slow economic recovery. Our sources of income are in duress. National transfers are the main source of provincial receipts to the province, to the provincial government. Rural provinces, such as the Eastern Cape province, are more dependent on transfers from national government. are likely to be more affected than urban provinces with additional revenue sources. We are, however, steadfast in improving socio-economic conditions of our people as mandated by them through fixing of inefficiencies. Fiscal consolidation remains our strong weapon if we are to overcome the current conditions. In these current conditions, we have to do more with less. Our fiscal consolidation strategy is anchored around provincial own revenue, management of wage bill, zero-based budgeting, and managing medical legal claims. During the 2020 special adjustment budget table in July 2020, the provincial own revenue estimates was adjusted to 1.1 billion rand from 16.6 billion rand in 2020-2021, and thus a decrease of 489.6 million rand due to COVID-19 hard lockdown restrictions that affected the activities and revenue collection. We are, however, working tirelessly to increase our revenue collection. Honorable members, we have been struggling with a service delivery dilemma where over 60% of our budget in the province goes to compensation of employees instead of service delivery imperatives. The budget cuts we've experienced are not making things any easier. We have now taken a bold decision towards the management of wage bill. Our framework to managing the wage bill consists, amongst others, that all posts that have been approved by the PCMT, including posts where interviews have been concluded, but the appointment letter has not yet been issued, posts to be advertised or have been advertised should be reviewed. Departments that have not issued appointment letter to the potential candidates should resubmit their motivation for any critical and essential vote.
Apology, MEC. Can we just request MEC Madikizela to mute for us? Thank you, MEC Madikizela. You may continue, MEC Mvoko.
All posts that have been advertised in the print media, TPSA circular as well as the Office of the Premier circular, including where the interview viewing panels and master list completed, must be re-evaluated before being submitted to PCMT for re-approval. Departments should refrain from offering personal notches for new appointments. A moratorium on monetary payment of overtime for all non-essential services staff, or only those that had pre-approvals on or before November the 11th, should be considered for time off in lieu of 2021. Departments must also not exceed appointing them above the threshold of 5%. Department must implement all OSD correctly when it's due to prevent any backlogs. We also want to appeal to all provincial departments to prioritize the review process of their organizational structures to ensure that their core mandates are protected. In addition, Eastern Cape government will go on a new review study on how to resource the state with the requisite human capital base and skills in line with priorities of government. We believe that this exercise will augment our efforts of improving service delivery. Honorable Speaker, during the tabling of the main budget in March this year, I announced the introduction of spending reviews and zero-based budgeting in selected government departments and line departments, not matched by the quality and by the quantity and quality of services delivered. In the past, the emphasis has been on incremental budgeting, with not much emphasis on evaluation.